Welcome to Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm Tim.
I'm AuxilliaryOtter.
I'm CryptRat.
And we've got an episode this week about co-op Magic. This is something that we've seen a little bit in Magic so far, but not a ton of. There was recently a Ninja Turtles product, but there were also a couple kind of almost legendary Theros products 15 years ago. I guess at the top here, we could do like a little bit of a breakdown of what ideas kind of spring to mind when we're talking about co-op.
I guess there's sort of a couple different directions people could go, whether it's a co-op mode where people bring their own decks versus a co-op that is entirely pre-constructed.
Yeah, those are pretty big differences because Magic has so many corner cases supporting all of those, supporting it. I mean, it's a little bit like a Dungeons and Dragons or something like, hey, when do I get to use my spell where I can freeze water? We haven't run into any water worth freezing lately. What the hell? Bringing your Magic deck to a co-op thing can sometimes have that feeling.
I guess there could also be like power level outliers where it's not quite balanced if it's not like prepared in that way.
Mm-hmm. I think a good place to start to me, because I've played this 3 or 4 times already, is a kind of unusual product that was released along with Ninja Turtles, which is the Ninja Turtles Turtle Team Up box. So this is in that second camp that CryptRat was just talking about. This is a self-contained box of 4 decks, one for each of the turtles, and then a 5th deck that no one plays, but that plays itself. It sort of flips over cards over time. The decks that the turtles play are functional, normal Magic card decks with all normal Magic cards in them. They all kind of fit their deck's own theme. So each player is playing a different one of those turtles with a pre-made deck. But the main kind of focus or cool feature of this box is the Boss's deck. There are kind of 2 pieces to this. There are 2 different card types. One of those, I guess there's 3 card types. There's creatures, kind of like Magic creatures. There are events, which are sort of like sorceries, and there are bosses, which are sort of like enchantments. Depending on the number of players, if you've got 2, 3, 4 players, you have different amounts of life. But you also, what you're going to do is you're going to flip over a boss, and then when you defeat that boss, you deal 20 damage to it. Then you flip over 2 bosses, then when you defeat that, you flip over 3 bosses, and then if you survive that onslaught, you win the battle, basically. And that's the whole co-op mode, is that you have to win 3 times, basically, like a 3-phase sort of thing. The game doesn't restart between new bosses coming out. So part of the cool thing about this is that, like, the early boss that you face, you also don't have a lot of resource to defeat. And then later on, you have to fight 3 bosses at the same time. But by then, you have lots of mana. Hopefully, you have some creatures in play and other things like that. One of the things about these co-op decks is what the win condition is and what win conditions can you support in a format like this. I think one of the things that you mentioned with decks that you make yourself is they could bring things that like uniquely disable exactly what a particular co-op experience can do. CryptRat, I think you were mentioning that you had played like a Death Touch deck against a bunch of the Theros decks. Is that the sort of experience you had there?
The Hydra, the Minotaur Horde, and then the Satyr Storm.
Yeah.
It was whatever the 1 and 2 drop Death Touch creatures were in Standard at that time. And by the end of that 3 different experiences, I also had a bow that I could attach to the Death Touch creatures that would untap when a creature died. So it ended up very trivializing the 3rd one.
You get to just machine gun down a bunch of satyrs.
Yeah.
That's fun. Maybe that's something we can think about. What kinds of mechanics would trivialize that kind of experience? The bulk of those cards that you're playing against the Ninja Turtles are creatures and events. So the creatures, there's basically 3 different sizes of creatures. All these creatures have one piece of text in common. They say this creature can't block. In this case, in the TMNT deck, the AI never blocks and can't block. And then they attack with basically anything that they can on their turn. The different creatures that you can flip are just the Foot Disciple, which is a 3/3 that can't block. You can get Foot Skirmisher, which is a 2/1 flyer that can't block. And then you get Foot Enforcer, a little more rarely, which is a 6/3 that can't be blocked by more than one creature. So these aren't quite vanilla; they're kind of French vanilla-y. The mechanics of the creatures are not super complicated, and that's maybe in flavor with the Foot Clan, with the bad guys and Ninja Turtles just sending a million ninjas after you.
So as I was saying, I was doing my own testing. That actually, my version after like reading the TMT one, I
Hmm.
perused it earlier, and then I re-updated my old file from many years ago. I
Hmm.
ended up engineering something that was much more complex than the TMT one.
Oh, okay.
And one of my struggles I've run into is I played my thing with people's random commander decks against my AI boss.
Hmm.
So people were already maxed out on complexity a bit on their own
Hmm.
deck.
Hmm.
And I was trying to avoid using a bunch of exterior elements. Like the
Yeah.
TMT one has a default boss, as you mentioned earlier, those boss cards, modify those simple creatures into interesting ways,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Like one of them like gives all of the creatures a keyword or something is a pretty common one.
Yeah. First strike or death touch or yeah.
I was trying to avoid something like that because that's
Hmm.
usually how I design a lot of things in my life. I was
Okay.
trying to design all the complexity on just the cards to mimic closer to like normal Magic, where all the complexity in
Yeah.
Magic is kind of one card. It's not dungeons and rings, though. I guess those are in
Yeah.
Magic too now.
Each card sort of brings a decent amount of complexity to the game. Like every 5 drop in commander is going to be like, we have to pay attention to this because this is going to do something.
And so, honestly, my next version of this, I think I might be leaning towards something that is singular cards modifying simple creatures, rather than having a bunch of complex creatures with large text boxes.
Yeah.
I know we've all probably felt this feeling of looking across the board and you're playing against a precon that is all brand new cards you've never seen before. And even though each card isn't individually complex,
Yeah.
reading 50 new Doctor Who cards is exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess there's like uh, maybe not overload, but you're really likely to get to the brink with anything co-op because you're dealing with the same number of players as like a commander or something like that. Co-op, you probably have simpler decks, but you still have the same number of players, and you have this like desire to maximize that is requires actually really understanding the entire board state. In a commander, sometimes you're like, which of those cards really matter? You know, we can just let this proceed. I don't need to like, I don't have a lot of cards that are like about interacting, about teaming up. Whereas these co op experiences, like part of the point is to have cards that help other players.
Just to clarify, Tim, the TMNT one, you as a group of the turtles, you had a collective shared life total, right?
Yes.
And the boss has one life total.
Hmm.
And those were scaled to be like a 60 card game where you have 60 cards in your deck, so it's 20
Hmm.
life was the default, and you scaled up a bit based on player count.
Yeah, I think it's 20, 30, 40 for 2, 3, 4.
Now, when you beat a boss, you didn't reset the board, but you did reset both groups' life totals, right?
Or do you reset the player life totals?
If you're playing this as a group, did it specify how the tokens were attacking, like who they were attacking?
Yeah, so because you have a shared life total, you're being attacked as a team, kind of two-headed giant style. I think it could pick specific players, but it was not relevant in any of the stuff that I experienced at least. And two-headed giant, once in a while, real rules nerd wise, you can say like, well, this says the player that you're attacking, blah 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 blah, discards a card. The effects didn't seem to be set up that way, where like which player the bosses were attacking didn't seem to matter.
So it didn't. It's not like a free-for-all multiplayer commander game where it only the
Hmm.
person being attacked can block. Anybody can block any of the things that are attacking.
Yeah, which I think it would be hard to convince me otherwise that you'd want to do something else, having done it that way.
Well, Tim, let me rise to the challenge there. I've thought about how should the AI attack people because of these things that Magic brings up. If you do have just generally it attacks everybody, you can sculpt all the cards to make that simplicity work.
Hmm.
One of the versions I came up with tried to use a system where the AI would try to attack each player separately, but as
Hmm.
evenly as possible. So
Hmm.
like if one person has like 6 5/5 creatures, they can
Hmm.
and the horde is, let's say the AI is attacking with like 5 creatures, it can only block 2 of them because it has to spread the other 2 to 3 creatures across the other players.
Oh, okay.
And that created some texture that allowed for interesting moments, but it also did add a lot of complexity.
Yeah.
So I was trying to decide whether the debate on that was worth the complexity trade-off to force more players to have to commit to the board or take damage.
Hmm.
My rule I did also test out was everyone has their own separate life total, and if one player dies, the whole group dies.
Oh, okay. Separate life total, but yeah. But no, yeah.
I have seen ones where people die off, and as long as one of you one of you player characters can finish off the AI, you win. You can also have it where one person drops. I was saying, where that puts the higher stakes of everyone needs to protect even that lower
Hmm.
life total person. And it led to some conversations where players were like, "Oh, no, I'll just take that big hit this turn. You can take the smaller creature."
Yeah. That's a little
Um,
bit more like a Dungeons and Dragons or something where the cleric says, "Well, I'm not really the tank of the group, but I'll jump in there and take a couple hits so that everyone else can reposition."
Also untested, I have another version I was wanting to try out that was even more kind of risque and ambitious. Was having it have separate life totals, but the AI attacks like it has dethrone logic where it hunts down the person with the highest life total,
Oh,
but it
okay.
swings its entire horde at them at once.
That's the one that's been the most convincing of what you proposed so far. Attacking the highest, I think, is
Well, it leads to some really weird texture though, because you'd have like, let's say in the first couple turns, it has like 2 to 10 power collective, so
yeah,
it's doing 2 or 10 damage, and then late game it could be swinging for like 60 or 70. So
yeah,
even though people have lower have some beefy life totals, they can just get knocked out.
yeah, yeah.
And that
Eh,
added some texture that felt very risky to me, that the experience would feel cheapened. But it's something I would
yeah.
imagine would feel really good if players like felt like that was interesting to purposely hurting themselves to get them under a threshold so it attacks the other player. Giving you moments to feel
Sure.
clever against the AI is something I'm always looking for.
Yeah. I have no doubt that we can get the players to a state where they're overloaded, right? We could put in enough mechanics that it becomes like that is the natural state or the natural thing that we are trying to solve is not overloading the players, and so like making some decisions that are kind of sad of like, well, the boss attacks are really dumb all the time. If you make that decision, you get a whole bunch of extra budget for every other part of the mode.
How much bookkeeping did it feel like the Ninja Turtle deck had as far as like making the AI turns move?
I would say that the bookkeeping was super low, and that was like a really nice thing about it because you're flipping some number of cards, one, two, three cards. Those cards are either creatures that just hit the board or events, which we haven't talked about too much yet, but events are basically sorceries, and then life totals. And because you have two life totals, one for us, one for them, that was also quite easy. There might have been a couple +1/+1 counters here and there on creatures, but even that's pretty simple. That's pretty free for Magic players.
You do have some of the bosses in the TMNT product did add those special rules. Like one of the bosses is close to Phyrexian Arena, where it, as the
Yeah.
boss, means that as it's playing its simple creatures and simple spells, it gets to draw an extra card and play an extra one at the cost of some of its life every turn.
Hmm.
So it feels thematically tied to Magic in that enchantment sense. But
Yeah.
it is really just, hey, we're going to play this simple game of turtles and spells against, like ninjas and spells against the turtles.
Yeah.
But here's the rule that's different. So you could even increase complexity there where it has an AI attachment to here's how it's going to attack, but then a boss could modify that way it attacks.
Yeah, I felt like it worked just really well. I think having the bosses be these modifiers and the modifiers basically shifting as the game went on. You defeat one boss, their life total resets. You defeat some more bosses, their life total reset. So you have to kill like a couple waves of bosses. That was like really easy to grok because all the other cards stayed the same. Like the creature and events, like all those didn't change. So you could learn those even within the course of one game. You could learn those and anticipate what things might pop off of the deck.
It occurred to me a moment ago when you were describing
Hmm.
the, I guess, flow of the game where it's all of the players and then the AI. You also get some time savings where, since people are not in conflict with each other, people can take their turn simultaneously, where
Hmm.
would not normally get that in multiplayer Magic.
Yeah, if it did one thing that I didn't totally love is it meant that like players had to coordinate pretty strongly within each phase when it's time to change phases. Because with two-headed giant, it's not too hard. But with 4 players all sharing a phase, like, are we ready to leave main phase? Oh, no, wait. Or should I wait until combat to do this? Or blah, blah, blah. Like it put more focus or more stress on the phases of Magic, I think. Not in a way that was breaking for me, but it definitely came up a lot, even in, 3 or 4 games.
Do you think it would have taken about the same amount of time if players had separate turns?
I guess, yeah, if you had separate turns, like basically 5 different turns, one for each player and then the boss, one for each player and the boss, one for each player and the boss, that would probably take a lot of the stress off of the phases themselves because each player could manage exactly what they want to do with only a little bit of interaction between them. I guess the main thing you lose with separate players is combat is like a little wimpier. Maybe it's actually not that different though, because in the TMNT case, the bosses can't block. So players get to chip in whatever damage they're able to chip in. So separate turns might have worked okay.
The boss also isn't casting Counterspell and isn't casting Doomblade.
Yeah.
So to some extent, as long as you guys haven't revealed additional information, you can kind of undo and redo based on your timing sequences.
Yeah.
Like if someone attacks someone's like, hey, wait, let me cast this card first, and then you can attack.
Yeah.
And now, if you start drawing cards, there's revealed information, and you can get very particular about that.
Yeah.
I know one time when I was doing my thing, I had a thing that says I get an extra combat phase. And since two-headed giant rules, that gives your entire team an extra combat phase. That led to some very fun moments of we get to, as a mega team, attack. That wouldn't have worked with the stagger. And any system we come up will have exploits like that of pros and cons.
Yeah.
One of the pros of doing simultaneous, and this is an exploit anytime you have 1v3, is if you can like counterspell the AI with like a negate.
Yeah.
You can have one person build a deck that's designed to just cast negate every turn, and the other person does like, green beatdown. And that can lead to really high abuse cases. Similar, if you do it staggered though, you could have the first person in turn order, they always cast Wrath of God, and then the next 2 players just play haste creatures.
Yeah. You could really synergize that way. I guess the other thing about simultaneous is that there's less downtime, or at least the feeling of downtime. Like if we have to do them sequentially, if you have to do Leonardo, then Donatello, then Raphael, and then Mike, the other 3 players are mostly just sitting there. Maybe they fire off a combat trick, but they're mostly doing nothing while they watch everyone else play. With stuff like land drops or just playing out a creature that's not that interesting, it's kind of nice to not have to like watch, or show everyone else what you're doing. You could just say, hey, I played this creature. What did you guys do? Oh, I cast this artifact. Oh, what'd you do? I killed that guy. Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, I guess if you are spending time bartering for when are we going to change phases, you are active in the game and you are interacting with the other people that you're there to interact with, which isn't the worst.
Yeah. I agree, and I think like usually it was in pursuit of a more satisfying game experience because like we all really wanted to win. Like we were pretty dedicated, and so maximizing it felt like the thing we wanted to do. And just like any sort of pandemic or any other cooperative game, you could quarterback a little bit. One person could take control or whatever. But I think maybe having your own hand and being used to playing Magic meant that we were more used to just administering our own turn or our own resources rather than like the full face up, everyone agrees on what everyone else should be doing style of a pandemic. I did want to do 1 or 2 examples of some of the cards in the event deck just to get people an idea of what it feels like to play against these boss decks. So at first you're playing against like 1 a turn, then 2 of these plays a turn, then 3 of these plays. There's a total of 27 cards that you're going to be flipping. 10 of those are creatures, then 17 of those are events. A couple of the 2 common ones that you see multiple times are Villain Mayhem, which is as a team, the heroes choose 3 creatures they control, destroy each other creature the heroes control. So this is like destroy all but the 3 best creatures on the board, which there are 3 copies of that out of 27, but there are 3 copies of that. And then Villain Infiltration, as a team, the heroes choose a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control, destroy it. That kills like the best creature across the whole team.
So one punishes going tall and the other punishes going wide.
Yeah, yeah. The other ones are a little more, they can do other things like bounce a bunch of creatures, deal damage to a bunch of things. And I don't know if it was a design space thing, but if it does feel like the main way the bosses are stopping you is by reducing the number of creatures that you have available.
I put down a lot of like stacks pieces in my versions so that people had to fight through a lot of permanents
Okay.
that made things worse for you. Like,
Yeah.
imagine Cat playing against Sheoldreds that like, oh man, and now I'm drawing cards and we're all losing life, and every turn it's gaining life because it's drawing cards. I know their version for WotC's, they say they don't draw and discard, they just reveal and flip. I wanted to interact more with WotC's like terms, so I had it draw and I had it discard. But also I was afraid of it getting stacked out of the game. So
Yeah.
I tend to add some cheeky rules that let it circumvent stacks so that it's not cheesed out as easily.
I think Stacks is a good. So Stacks is sort of like creature spells cost more. You can't draw more than 2 cards in a turn. Like a rule setting that slows people down. If you would play a second land instead, bounce it to your hand.
Or you have creatures like whenever any player casts a spell, I grow larger.
Mm-hmm.
So that way people feel like they don't want to play their stuff because it's giving benefits to the other player, or in this case,
Yeah. That might be the avenue for scaling up these decks to more powerful decks, I guess. Like, I'm a villain with like a paralysis ray, and that's why you can't do this. Like, you could definitely flavor those to be an antagonist doing something to your group of heroes.
I was targeting commander play patterns, and some of it might have been sadistically punishing them. Some might have been just trying to force them to do different things. So I had a couple effects that are like, oh, if you tutor, it really punishes you. If you're like trying to do, like if you try to go over ramp over certain things, imagine it counts casting cards like balance or something. And I overshot some of these and made them very punishing on some play patterns. And I think that would be something if you can thread the needle of creating things that feel like the players at the experience get to engage with the system in a way that feels like they got to do something about it. Like these edicts and stuff. I had one that was just having them sack non-basic lands because I saw non-basic lands as powerful, but it turns out everyone has non-basic lands, so them being sacrificed just meant we got slowed down.
Yeah, thinking through that stuff of like what other options you have, I wanted to highlight like a couple of the cards from the boss deck that I thought were also relevant, kind of like the things that you're talking about here. And I think it's very simple, and you kind of need the simple ones. One of the ones that I thought was really nice was a card called Krang's Stratagem, which is as a team, the heroes discard a total of 2 cards. That felt like really team building in a weird way. 4 players, we're going to discard 2 cards between us. Who can bear the burden?
That is a good piece of tech.
Something I like about that particular card
Yeah.
is you've got 4 people there. Somebody's going to have a bad draw. It keeps them, I guess, engaged. It makes
Yeah.
what they have in hand that they can't use still helpful to the table.
Yeah, yeah. If their draw is like bad and that they have way too many lands, hey guys, I'll just pitch 2 lands. Everyone else has a vacation. But if it's like, hey guys, I've done nothing this game. Can I just keep all my cards so that I can eventually play them? And then the other players, oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, go ahead and do that. So either way, like that player gets to contribute, I guess.
I will say the other one that I was trying to mess with that was an effect that I thought was clever was effects that feel threatening but actually aren't. I'm aware that a lot of casual players are really scared of mill.
Yeah.
So I had the AI occasionally draw these really powerful, big, scary mill cards that are like exile the top 10 or 15 cards of your giant commander deck, knowing good well no one's milling out.
Yeah.
But it did create the emotion I wanted. People hated them, and I was so happy to give them something they could hate that did not really actually affect their win percentage, so that they feel better killing this thing or picking on this thing because it hurt them. But it really didn't.
Yeah. Maybe a source of inspiration then is like things in limited that feel really appealing to try to do, but they aren't that good to do. And in this case, it's like play some mill cards. Like if you're trying to play limited and you play just a couple mill cards to mill your opponent, it's never going to get there. You have to play a ton of them to do that. You have to play a lot of mill to do that. And the boss deck is maybe the same sort of setup where like it can do a thing that like maybe if the game goes way too long, it'll matter, but is mostly just going to be like a cool, like, ha ha ha, we are the bad guys. We are vaporizing your library. Ha ha ha.
I mean, I could imagine a boss in some version of this that's like, oh, it reverts all of its damage to mill. So normally the cards that are
Yeah.
overpowered mill cards just to scare people actually are a threat
Yeah.
when this guy is active.
Yeah. If you happen to draw a couple of those events and you happen to have this boss out. Yeah.
And some people could say that's bad design because it's leading to like radically different outcomes and swinginess.
Yeah.
So I think that's something you want to like sculpt for yourself and decide what you want out of your product.
I feel like you kind of want the bosses to be swingy. Even playing it 3 or 4 times, some of them are kind of minor enough that you don't really care that they're there. Or you're like, oh yeah, there's a boss there, it does a thing, who cares? Like there's one that gives all the ninjas death touch. And giving things death touch is fine for these like throwaway creatures, but it hasn't been scary, I guess is what I'm saying.
Interesting. I had a card that gave all my creatures death touch in my version, and that was one of the few really impactful cards.
Oh, okay.
Because one of the best tools for dealing with the cards is I put a bunch of prison pieces on creatures. So the way you got rid of this prison piece attacking you was putting a big enough creature to block it. And the moment they have death touch, you can't just use your giant 7/7 you've been using as a abyss every turn. And so death touch actually changed it, so people had to like take a hit for a turn, suicide something with a death toucher who was giving everything death touch, and then the next turn rotation you go back to the play pattern of using your 1 or 2 big creatures to block its big threats.
It looks like there's also another boss that gives first strike, so if you imagine they both come up at the same time, that's potentially scary.
Yeah. The first strike one has been a little scarier so far, but what do I know? I think the last one that I want to highlight from Ninja Turtles is one that like is one of the boss cards. It's Savanti Romero, Temporal Rogue. It's like some demon, I think. When one or more ninjas the bosses control deal combat damage to the heroes, the bosses play a card. And this is, a typical blue effect or black effect maybe or something. So it's not that uncommon to Magic. But I feel like the fun of this card was really high, or the scariness, the effectiveness card is really high. Because in a lot of cases, you're trying to decide, it really doesn't matter if we take 2 damage. Like, don't bother killing that creature, But here it's like, we would really either like to fully clean up the monsters or clean up none of the monsters. It doesn't make sense to only clean up some of them, which added some variety to the bosses and variety to the gameplay. Like if anything gets through, something happens was really effective for this AI setup. Because otherwise we have 40 life. Who cares if we get hit for 3 a bunch of times? And now we can care. Now we have a reason to care.
One of the techs I explored that actually captures this same idea, I think is really clever, was I wanted to find ways to make the AI scale against your opponents. And I really like how TMNT has this 1 boss, then 2 boss, then 3 boss.
Yes.
And even in the rulebook, it mentions you could do where instead of replacing, you just add bosses. I used max speed as one of my mechanics that I gave one of my versions of my AI as a tool that it says, hey, anyway, it makes you lose life.
Max speed, yeah. That's true, yeah.
And it was already scaled to opponents because it doesn't care how many players lose life. It just did 1 lose life. It increased its speed. And one of the games I played against my AI, my deck just did not do anything. I was floundering, and every turn it attacked. And because I was doing my split, it has to attack people evenly. I had to go, guys, I can't block. So it's going to hit me, which means its speed's going to go up. You guys can still block and kill its best creatures, but beware, I can't block. Otherwise, I'm time walking myself. And so its speed got better and better. And then I had all my cards that had a max speed, this gets better, which led to a threshold of all players really don't want to have a hit max speed, but it doesn't hurt until you get higher speed. So the first 2
that's
hits
another
are kind
good
of
one.
free.
Yeah.
So even though we're playing with commander life totals, which are huge, it did lead to people caring about emotionally getting hit and stuff. But a little less
Yeah.
on the unknown of the could it be anything? Because you do know everything has max speed. It's going to be something. But giving everything max speed did increase my text boxes by a lot. So
I had a question. I guess I was thinking about it when you brought up the TMNT was doing, I guess, basic fundamentals of Magic. Did the product feel like it was aimed at the highly enfranchised commander crowd, or people outside of Magic, or people in Magic to play with people outside of Magic?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think there's some weird product positioning stuff that made it not good at its goal, but I think this is built as play 4-player Magic, and 2 of those people know how to play Magic. Like, I think that's what here's a way to bring in people who don't know that much about Magic. This is like beginner friendly, satisfying for existing players, but it's not like, it's definitely not aimed at like, oh, you're a hardcore commander player. Here's the thing you play with your 3 other hardcore commander friends.
Like a couples night type of thing?
Yeah, yeah. Like a especially nerdy board game night. Like some of us know how to play Magic. Some other people are like, maybe I could get into this. I think there's like a little bit of a limit in that, like the combination of I'm going to teach you Magic the Gathering, but we're going to be playing with cards that are Ninja Turtle themed. Feels like a hard sell.
I mean, these decks look very similar to the Friday night boxes you could buy at Walmart for a while that were like 5 precons that you could play against each other that were monocolored.
Oh, the Magic the Gathering game night product?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. If this were like a Strixhaven box or something, like I feel like that would have united what they were trying to do product wise. Cause like here's a really resonant theme that is still very fantasy. Also combine it with a theme about learning to do things. I feel like that kind of thing would have actually made this product like make a ton of sense in terms of who should buy it and when you should play it and you should pitch it to. Whereas now, the main way I've gotten people to play it with me is like, look at this kind of goofy thing that you would never play otherwise, and that I would like to talk about on a podcast. Can you do me the favor of playing this with me? And that's like sort of been the pitch so far, for better or worse. I don't know that I would want to go that much more complicated playing a co-op thing or trying to talk people. Like it could go more. You could get 30% extra complicated or whatever and not be a huge problem. But I think you would start to really lose the fun factor if you tried to switch from fun to interesting, fun to complicated, fun to difficult. Like you would lose a lot if you tried to make this a lot more intense.
I mean, Tim, I was pretty happy that somebody I played Magic with for a while he's like a person who buys precons, upgrades them a little bit, and just buys a precon every couple months kind of person.
Yeah.
He was really excited to play against my AI deck like the following weekend. He's like, oh yeah, let me bring this one to try it against that. And that was like I was through the moon when I heard that.
I think that is a good point. If you're just trying to design the AI decks, if that was a thing that you could like build some sort of momentum behind, I could definitely see you getting there.
Well, I was also very much I'm desperate for my commander group that I hang out with to play more Magic as like a holistic game and less of just the commander game. But I have to realize I have to ground myself into what they want to do too.
Yeah.
And looking at these welcome decks, I would be so frustrated playing this product.
The Ninja Turtle one?
Yeah, there just isn't enough interactions with each other. Because these feel like jumpstart decks. You made some jumpstart decks to battle against this.
Yeah.
And, for the product of, it replaced the jumpstart product in that set, if I remember correctly.
Maybe.
So for WotC, they have the goal of, here's an intro deck to teach people Magic. Here's a way to do it. It's great for them. But I have less need of that. So I would want to be the person who's getting all the complicated interactions with each other. But I do recognize some of my AI stuff overshot that mark by a lot. I put a lot of text on those cards, and some of the people I played with like zoned out at certain moments. They were just so done. Now, it didn't help that they were also mana screwed those games, so they were just kind of like
fair enough.
A commander player who's like, oh, I'm just mana screwed, and they just don't even listen. They might even have interaction, but they don't care anymore.
Yeah.
They've missed 3 land drops in a row. They're just dead. But they'll still be there. They won't quit and go next game. They'll just sit there.
The interactions were not necessarily like groundbreaking in terms of their novelty. Like, I don't think there were any effects that I'd never seen before in these cards, but they were plenty interactive. Like, Gabby played the Leonardo deck a couple times, and that one has like, when this creature attacks, untap up to one other target creature. That is just like a really workhorse, very fun, solid thing to have in this co-op format. Like, just when
Also mutagens.
yeah, mutagen. I attack with this guy. Guess what? Your guy gets untapped. We're gonna be ready to block. Which guy should we untap? Or like, hey, I'm gonna give flying to another guy. Who should we give it to? Should we leave that one giant creature back? Like, there was plenty of satisfying interaction between the players, even if the cards would be on the snoozy side if you were playing a one-on-one game.
And I look at these ones like there's several cards because they're using the cards from their actual products.
Yeah.
But I look at these cards and I'm like, oh, this says put a +1 counter on each other creature target player controls. That was for this product, Splinter and Leo, father and son. That's clearly geared to do this cool interaction. But then they have cards that's like, oh, when this creature enters, put a counter on target creature you control, because that's a card from the main set.
Yeah, some of the cards are limited by being reprints from the main set, yeah.
And they did that for Arena, because Arena, you don't want to have the option to target your opponent's creatures.
Yeah.
And that's good for Arena things. It's just, when Magic has to be the game for everything, it does create some edges that aren't as good.
Yeah, so I think like when people are reading these cards, it might feel kind of underdone, but I don't know. The game experience has been satisfying so far, at least to me.
With 4 players, even just a simple targeted effect, you get a lot more options for how to use it.
Yeah. I think like a perfect example of something, I don't know if this exact card is in the set, but like a spell that just puts 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature is like 20 times more fun in this mode than it is in normal Magic. Because in normal Magic, there's usually a correct answer and it's clear. And in co-op, like, who should get those 2 +1/+1 counters? We have so much discussion to go through. Like, and it's so cool. It's fun. And the person casting, it's like, oh, everyone loves my card. And then the person who gets the counters is like, oh, people love my card so much they put counters on it. Like it just becomes way cooler than it is in normal Magic.
I had a Commander story where I did that many years ago, where my brother and I were playing with 2 people we hadn't seen before they showed up, and we're playing. And there was a combat step where we were discussing what was going to happen. Someone had a Kalia, and then their partner had a 2/2 flyer or something to block. And then there's me and my brother, and the person with Kalia is trying to decide who they're attacking. And my brother and I chime up, I've got the Rock Commander, so I've got plenty of 2 damage shocks from rocks. And my brother has Lightning Bolt in his hand. And we're discussing just like, oh, if you want to do this. And there was like a big political conversation for like a couple minutes. And then after the game, they're like, man, you guys have such good political decks. And I look at my brother and I'm like, we have burn spells.
Yeah.
All we have is the simplest core Magic systems. And it created so much texture for these fun like interactions. No, you're talking about co-op where those, instead of being negative, they're almost always positive.
Yeah.
And it's so sad to see how many games of Magic you can get that don't have those because the tools aren't given to the players to give that agency.
Yeah, that is an interesting point that I feel like we could spend a really long time talking about, where like Commander deck design, or even like standard or whatever, any other format, normal format, is about making your own thing pretty cool. I'm going to make my dinosaur deck. Guess what I'm going to put in there? Cards that are dinosaurs or that make dinosaurs better. And I'll throw in a couple removal spells and board wipes. Like, you're not really encouraged to do things that will make for like really complicated deals or whatever, because the power level of those is kind of variable, and playing, like, you're never going to pop off doing that. You're just going to have a really good time. Like, you're just going to have a really cool moment. Whereas like in my artifact commander deck, I just want to glass cannon a million artifacts into play and then have just 22 permanents in play.
Pre-constructed environments do give you, I guess, good boundaries on what this type of experience is. And then if you're there for that pre-constructed experience, everybody should be on the same page.
Yeah.
I do like there's this kind of mixture of you are not going in with any ego. You're just sort of like being handed a deck and watching the gameplay that ensues, which is what this turtle experience is. Like, I don't get to choose what experience I have, compared to the puzzle solving thing of like, here's a complicated AI deck that is hard to beat. What deck are you going to bring to beat that? How do you crack that code? what we're going to look at now are a bunch of decks from our community, or a bunch of concepts. They're not all decks, but a bunch of modes or pitches from our community about co-op. And maybe we'll take turns reading them. I'll read the first one here from Juliet. And Juliet's pitch is a Final Fantasy XIV raid kind of event. Trope-wise, this is not necessarily just one boss. This is like a series of bosses, or a boss and then a bunch of minions, and a boss and a bunch of minions. And what Juliet says here is this is 4-player cooperative magic and a 5th sort of dungeon master. Maybe a little less adversarial than an archenemy. PvE against scripted opponents with special rules, who effectively is a dungeon being cleared. The 4 players have roles to fill. This is kind of interesting. Tank, healer, and then DPS, 2 DPS. DPS is damage per second, but it means like people that deal a lot of damage. The extreme version could also be a kind of jumpstart environment where the tank can build from any combination of 2 combos of 5 different decks. So like I'm going to combine deck A and deck C today to form my tank deck. I could do deck A and deck E and get a different experience.
So like I want to be white blue healer, and the next person who would play the same thing could play like white green healer.
Yeah.
As a jumpstart deck is the way I'm reading that sentence.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I think using the color is a good example there. Like I'm the black-red tank, so I'm just here to like take a ton of damage, but also like steal a bunch of life from my enemies. Whereas the blue-white tank is like, I'm going to paralyze enemies and bounce them and gain a bunch of life and block damage. So there's some more detail on this, but I think the other kind of thing to talk through when we're reacting to this is like, what are the advantages of not just like a AI controlled deck and not an arch enemy that's trying to just like win a game and kill everybody, but something sort of in the middle? A person like a dungeon master in D&D whose job it is to make it as fun as possible and challenging and scary and whatever else. How do we feel about these different components?
I'd like to see what Juliet used for examples for the scripteds. Because was they just saying like,
what
were
does
they thinking
scripted
like,
mean? Yeah.
yeah, were they talking about the general concept of, like we said, bosses that modify default creatures? Or were they thinking more like, oh, this is some sort of like trap door that you all of a sudden fall through? So players are like playing turns and all of a sudden surprise cards happen? Or was it script events like, okay, you have to beat, like, everyone needs to get to 7 lands before turn 9 or something? Are they like, how are these scripted challenges tailored?
Yeah.
Would it be interesting to see? If a player is adding them, like they're looking at a hand of 3 options and picking the one that would be the most interesting, would be the only reason I would see you would need a dungeon master outside of upkeep for just general lower complexity, more people's brain solving the problem. And at that point, you do need a good person who's a good DM who chooses the right level of pressure upon your opponents. Because if you get hit by the Cyclonic Rift and everybody was struggling, that's a real way to put people down. But if you get hit by Cyc Rift and you guys are all been popping off, that feels about right.
Yeah, justice, yeah.
I could imagine with the combinations of tanks and DPS and healers, that's, the classic D&D formats, is if players feel like they got to do their thing, that can be really good. And something we probably alluded to before is how much can these decks interact with each other. So I could imagine a tank who says, put a counter on yourself and then put a counter on somebody else as a very way the tank is going to do that. Versus the DPS might have more cards that says, I give myself big counters.
Yeah, or DPS could even say, hey, guess what? Everybody gets to deal extra damage for a while. Like, it could still be cooperative. It doesn't necessarily have to only be... I mean, that's the stereotype of DPS players, but it doesn't have to only be selfish.
I would love to see more games saying DPS help people, but, they just got to do more damage per second.
Well, they're also, like, picking off, like, especially bad guys and stuff like that.
So you could also sculpt it to be like these decks interact in, like, ways. It's like the healer says... what was that mechanic that's like clerics, warriors, party? There we go. Parties that says, hey, when you tap equal to the party of your team would be kind of interesting. So like the healer has a bunch of clerics in their deck, and then everybody else has their different roles from the party mechanic. So you kind of want to have everybody have a character in their group so you all have a larger party. And even in that set with party, they had cards that was like, I'm a warrior, that if I have a cleric under my control, I have ward. but I guess it could be brought in to be, I'm a warrior, and if my ally has a cleric, I have ward 1.
Yeah, you could have stuff internal to you. Hey, my clerics are cooler as a healer. And you can have stuff that like helps your whole party of like, hey, once I have a cleric and you have a fighter and you have a blah, blah, blah.
Something I like about this is that there are a number of very different roles that I imagine, for lack of better phrasing, play differently. You get some replayability when
Yeah.
you do this again. You can pick a different role, or if you just like a particular role, you have that choice to
Yeah.
pick the experience that you want.
Yeah. The monsters that you're playing against, you could play the same deck every week, but you're playing against different monsters, different bosses, different whatever. And that could also be fun of like, hey, this card wasn't that good last week, but it was awesome this week.
Next entry is by Mark Confidant. Open the Omen Paths. 2 or more players perform a PvE digital run of multiplayer Magic, starting with 2 30-card decks of mostly vanilla and French vanilla creatures. Over the course of Over the course of a run across the multiverse planes, both classic and digital cards are added to the decks. Permanent trinkets are collected, and cards, even players, are eternally altered through the course of the game. Some characters have bonus objectives, secret and unknown, for alternative history. Try that one again. Some characters have bonus objectives, both secret and known, for alternative story progression or bonuses. Mark's also listed existing cards like Victory Chimes to help with the multiplayer elements, and then Planequake, which I'm sure everybody knows on this server. Planequake is a sorcery that costs X and a red from the mystery playtest cards of 2021. Planequake deals X damage to each creature without flying and each planeswalker. If X is 10 or more, open the Uncovered Cavern plot booster.
Very good.
They also submitted a custom card, Karn of Urza and Yawgmoth, character card. Artifacts appear more frequently in packs, period. When you draft a non-creature artifact, it eternally becomes an artifact creature, with power and toughness equal to its mana value.
Pasting the rules note for Planequake. If you don't have the appropriate unopened plot booster when instructed to open one, that part of the spell or ability, its effect is ignored. All right, glad we got that clarification.
I mean, the other clarification, creatures and planeswalkers dealt lethal damage by Planequake won't be destroyed until the state-based actions are performed after you've opened the Planequake, the Uncovered Cavern plot booster, if applicable.
Very nice.
To know, Tim, state-based actions are important to keep track of.
Yeah. Spells don't kill creatures. State-based actions kill creatures.
I will say, I like Mark's idea here of playing several games like a legacy board game, where as you play, you add additional elements and you get, positives and negatives stickered onto your cards digitally, or, the hero decks. They had things that you could play and add to your collection of hero stuff. Some of them were equipment, some of them were like hero cards that people sometimes use in OP cubes at this point now. Because they just like give all your creatures paste and stuff. But they have a magic card, card, so they fit in sleeves. So some people use them, even if they don't have magic card backs.
Yeah. I guess this is super digital, right? This is not remotely paper. Because part of the idea here is artifacts appear more frequently in packs. If you wanted to administrate that in person, you're setting yourself up for a lot of weird shuffling.
Actually, Tim, have you played a legacy board game before?
I have, yeah. I'm looking at a completed board of Pandemic Legacy right now, right above my computer.
I'm unsure if Mice and Mystics counts as a legacy game. It probably has similar mechanics.
Stereotypical CryptRat playing a mice game.
That is why I bought it. So, yeah.
Yeah, so this is like Legacy. This is somewhere between Legacy and just a run-based thing. So run-based would be like Slay the Spire and Hades. You have some starting decks, 30-card decks that you're going to then start adding more cards, modifying with trinkets. Trinkets are kind of like a Slay the Spire thing of like black creatures you cast cost 1 less to cast or whatever. And that's not a card in your deck. That's just like a like a boss card, like a thing that's sort of outside the battlefield, but affects
We would
you.
use conspiracies now, I think, or hero cards for Magic, right?
Yep. I think flavor-wise, a conspiracy and a trinket are different enough that you could probably call it something new. One of the nice things about this is the idea here of objectives. Like I've been playing this co-op game called Absalom, which is like a kind of like a side-scrolling fantasy fighting game. You're like a dwarf or an elf or something. You're fighting a bunch of monsters. And that's run-based. But runs can be different because like different story elements appear in any given run. And that like this is a game where you hit the X button a lot to hit people, So having some like more meta things to shoot for might make it, if you want to get 10 runs, 20 runs, 30 runs out of something, objectives could be a way to do that. Like Slay the Spire 2 even has co-op. One of the nice things there is that the battles can still be quite fast, which is more difficult for Magic. Magic is built so that the first part of the game is typically slow. And if you want to get through a lot of battles, if you want to do 10 games of Magic, that's more than an evening at that point, probably.
I find like this kind of repeated space of you're going to play probably with the same group several times in a row. If that's your kind of meta, this is the
Yeah.
perfect kind of game. Legacy games are great for people who will like consistently play with the same people. And these kind of cool things lead to some really great story moments that would be good. And using the Magic system to execute on that, so you don't have to learn a different system like the pandemic system to play a legacy game would be really cool. I wouldn't be surprised if Magic puts out something like this at some point. But I think if you're going to have inconsistent players, this is exactly not what is good. So you're not going to be able to have like meet this up and play consistently and showing them something that has the extra levels of adding things as you play. Except I did come up with like maybe you could do micro games of Magic and condense this down to a smaller run. I don't know if you ever played Pygow. I was looking at
Yeah.
Pygow recently and doing Pygow Magic, but doing it where you have something that persists between the games would be
Yeah.
really interesting. So you could maybe
Pygow is
get
like you get a pack of cards, like just a regular sized pack of cards, and you split that into a couple piles, and you play really short games with just those piles of cards. So it's almost like 2 rocks and a paper versus your 3 scissors, and we see how it, pans out.
But the idea of doing that against an AI, so you could do lots of fast games, and you and the other person could have some level of persistence as you add more cards to your pack. So you start with like a much smaller pack. You could get away with doing that in an evening, but you'd have to change Magic down to that smaller scope of Pygow or something to get that rapid iteration down. Or is there suggesting a digital client where you can play 20 minutes one day, come back the next day, play 3 games of 20 minutes to an hour, and get that persistent run to work?
Yeah. I I have this weird, almost like allergy to designing things that require a lot of play. I don't know. Maybe it's pessimism of like, if I'm going to design something, I got to hit hard the first time. I can't count on playing my custom thing 20 times, which is not really what we should be evaluating on, but it's like my knee jerk reaction to this kind of stuff,
I
unfortunately.
also avoid legacy games. They don't work with the way I play games. I usually
Yeah.
am teaching somebody the game every time I'm playing a game, with the exception of Magic.
Yeah, we can't like easily bring in new people because it like kind of requires keeping the decks the same between the runs. Yeah, there's some funny things there, at least on the amateur side of game design.
But man, if somebody has a group of 4 people they're hanging out consistently, or as he even mentioned in his post, 2 or more people. So if you and your partner just
Yeah,
wanted
if you get to
to
2, yeah,
play against
maybe
this,
that's
that could be really
easier.
cool.
Yeah.
I'm not really getting a good sense of what kind of conflict Mark wants from the E side of the PvE.
Well, I just
It's
assumed it
just
was playing against essentially that TMNT deck over and over again, but with adding elements as you played. I hadn't thought to question that assumption.
because this is ostensibly the 2 or more players on the same team, but I guess the opposing team elements from that weren't specified here, so it's I guess a bit open ended.
Yeah. Mark left it kind of open as to like what the Are the opposition just playing regular Magic decks? Are they playing, completely like, like TMNT half decks that are sort of Magic mechanics, but not fully playing a whole turn?
I guess the crux of the design is the decks changing over the
Yeah,
course of
yeah.
multiple games.
I mentioned to you a while back that there's a Magic client called Forge, MTG
Oh,
Forge, and they
yeah.
have replicated Charizard. Not Charizard, Chandelar. There we go. Replicated Chandelar.
Mm-hmm.
It's different, but it's the same kind of idea. So I think if Mark isn't aware, they should definitely look into that, where there's a way to
Yeah,
play PvE, and you start with crappy decks, and you play against
yeah.
bosses that have weird passives. Like they start with one of the tutorial areas that just starts with a black mage's staff, and for all of the black mages, and they make the
Yeah. I think Chandelar is like a dream of a lot of players. That was like an old like MS DOS early Windows game where it was sort of a fantasy RPG, but played with Magic cards.
I guess the other thing I was sort of wondering, not necessarily specific to this submission, but certainly the shout out to Victory Chimes. I am a fan of Spectral Searchlight. Are we generally, for these submissions, imagining that the co-op nature is emerging from the threat, players using their cards to help other people, or are we generally imagining card designs specific to giving other players
Yeah.
resources?
How teamwork do we want to make these cards? That is a good question.
I guess where the teamwork is coming from.
The teamwork in like the TMNT thing, it's like 20% teamwork. Like the game, a lot of it is you just doing your own thing and making sure that like, hey, can someone kill that ninja? Or like who would like a +1/+1 counter? It's not majority cards that are interacting with other players, like a Victory Chimes or so on.
I guess that's more of the frosting of teamwork. The cards that specifically call out giving other players things. Certainly, if you had a situation where the antagonist that you're playing against is attacking players specifically, the basic removal spell, using it on another player being attacked to protect them, I guess that is an organic element of teamwork that I guess didn't seem present in the TMNT situation.
Where you have to more specifically take actions to say like, I can take this damage, don't worry about me. That's sort of what you're thinking.
Amorphous thoughts, just I guess
Mm-hmm.
trying to think through that.
Yeah.
This is a submission from Cord. They've titled it Chicken Coop Draft. Silently, you draft both your deck and the enemy's deck playing chicken with how good your cards and signals are. So I'm guessing this is a game of chicken where you're trying to go to the edge, but not over the edge, I guess. So Cord has listed this as a 4-player game mode. For drafting, 9 5-card packs per player, and the packs themselves contain 2 commons, an uncommon, a rare, and a wild card. Players draft without communicating, each player drafting to create a deck. Whenever a player opens a pack, they pick one card from the pack to put in the coop before drafting as normal.
Okay.
At the end of the draft, any player may choose to exchange their pool with the coop.
Oh.
Players build decks as normal, then face off against the coop. And then for playing, players share a pool of 30 life and have one free mulligan each. Players always go first and draw a card on their first turn. The coop plays second and has infinite mana. On its turn, it plays cards from the top of its deck until it plays a rare or mythic. Then the coop attacks with all creatures. Any additional choices the coop makes are decided by the players. The coop only loses when it runs out of cards, and all of its creatures are dead.
Okay. This is cooperative. This is a little bit like TMNT, except that we're drafting ahead of time.
Yeah, you're doing a burn draft though, where the burns get put is what you're gonna play
Yeah.
against.
Yeah. We're going to end up with 4 decks and then a 5th deck that is like all the chaff, but there's some twists around that chaff, right? Uh, one of them is that the chaff has infinite mana and will just continue playing all the cards until it plays a rare or mythic. So you have sort of a balance point of like, you can't give it only commons or else it's going to dump that whole deck into play. And 30 chickens are coming after you on turn 2. And the goal is to survive. So I guess maybe the coop dumping is in like half its deck in one turn isn't that bad because you have to kill them eventually. You have to kill all the creatures in the coop deck.
I'm a little worried the court is just being a little bit silly with us, finding a way to say co-op and realizing that's the word coop. And then found a clever way of saying chicken coop because that's a fun draft, but also making it a game of chicken, as Mark was mentioning, where you're trying to fill up the deck with the right ratio of rares and mythics to the tolerance you're okay with.
Yeah.
But I think the cleverness aside, it is just a fun system to do where you're drafting in silence, but you know you're drafting with other people in mind, so you're not trying to cut people, you're trying to find your lanes and get into them so that everyone can get their best deck. Without the tension of the enemy team. When you do team drafts, this happens sometimes where you're trying to open up the lane for your allies across the table. But this time everyone's just trying to burn the stuff into the deck and opening up the lanes for each other with, again, the risk of the chicken game of how much can you put in the coop without being a problem.
I think my thoughts go multiple places with that. But the first thing that I think of is that it's interesting that this is a draft mode where specifically the rarity of the cards you take or don't take is relevant to what happens.
Yeah, it's like cascading until you hit a rare card, basically.
You could just have everybody draft all of the rares, but I guess you end up in a situation where all of the common creatures are in play on turn 1, which is a problem.
Yeah.
You just go fog, Wrath of God, and you're fine, right?
There you go.
We beat it, Cord.
Yeah, this is fun because it has the feeling of a closed card pool, so we can dodge some of the bugs of like, how does looking at the hand of the auto playing deck work? Can you make the auto playing deck discard? Not really. Yeah.
Milling the opponent.
Yeah, I guess you start to build up some knowledge as to what the opponent's going to do. If you just say, hey, everybody, or you start noticing everybody's chipping in artifacts, it's like, oh, I better take all the artifact removal as well.
Is the coop face up or face down?
That's a good question. And that's, I think, one of the main discussion topics on this submission is like, so we're cooperative, but we don't talk to each other during the draft, but we really want to collaborate during the draft. And how much information, how many signals do we actually get? So, yeah, if the coop is face up, then we have at least one relatively clear signal line.
I think I might appreciate this more at 2 players than I would at 4. Just because with 4 players, I can sit down and play a game Commander pretty reasonably, or 2 games of 2. But with 2 people, particularly if they're a kind of a Commander player in general, they don't want to play 1v1. And co-op is one of the best ways to do that. But this introduces that draft element of, hey, we're going to draft. You and me sit across the table. A 5-card pack means we get some wiggling and signals, but at 4 players, a 5-card pack doesn't lead, particularly with the burn, means there's very hard to catch those signals that we're trying to communicate. And I would assume the coop would be face down to hide because Cord seems to be like wanting to put the players can't communicate. And if you can see the face up stuff, everyone burning all at once without communicating would be kind of hard, particularly if some people get, picking faster than others. But at 2 players, that back and forth might feel really good.
I kind of like face up currently. I obviously we haven't played this mode, but I'm kind of liking face up coop. Just because normal draft signals are going to be really scrambled in this format. Like, you can't really collate the packs. You know what I mean? There's only 5-card packs, so it's not like you can have... I guess you'd try to do one of each color, but like then you got to pile out a lot of cards.
How many cards does each player end up with?
9 5-card packs. So, but one of them gets burned, so it's like 9 4-card packs. So 36.
And then you would just get basic lands. I'm assuming it's 40-card decks.
Yeah, that seems about right. Yeah, so you cut 13 of your draft picks. Or fewer if you draft lands, blah, blah, blah.
The strategy for mitigating the lack of information you have, my initial thought would be like each player would try to draft a monocolor deck. You could sort of force them not to by including a lot of gold cards, which for their rate tend to be rather strong. And if the Coop is getting a bunch of free gold cards, that's sort of juicing the rate on all of the free cards that they're getting.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, gold cards would be a really good wrench because, like, unless players are then taking a bunch of fixing is like extra good to give the Coop because fixing doesn't matter to the Coop. But it might be extra powerful if I want that fixing to cast a bunch of gold cards or expensive cards. Huh.
So it looks like Cord was also listening to that episode of Spirit Island because I'm noticing all these parallels to stuff we were discussing back then.
Okay.
Because we were talking about the idea of how do you make cards that are good for you or good for the AI, and so you have to be forced to take those cards back and forth. Their example card here is Brazen Cannonade and Friendly Teddy. Friendly Teddy is just an artifact. When it dies, everybody draws a card. Really wouldn't matter who gets that. But Brazen Cannonade is a rare, so it'd be one of those cards the Coop would stop on. And it says, whenever an attacking creature you control dies, Brazen Cannonade deals 2 damage to each opponent.
Oh.
It's a 4 mana red enchantment. It also has Raid at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase. If you attacked with a creature this turn, exile the top card of your library. Until end of combat on your next turn, you may play that card.
Yeah, so that second part is like good for everybody, roughly equally. But that first part of dealing 2 to each opponent, we really can't let the Coop have that. That is quite strong.
Also, I have not seen that tech of until the end of combat on your next turn. Is really clever. I'd like to see Ozzy do that some more.
Until end of combat on your next turn. That is interesting. I did not know that said that even after I heard you read it out loud. I still shortcutted it to end a turn in my mind.
It's either really bad or really good for text to.
Yeah. Do we want that to be a gotcha? Is that a good place to put like a novelty? I don't know. That's a tangent, but like each opponent discards a card. That is like not that good for me to take as a player, but really bad for me to give to the Coop. So if I see that in my pack, I'm looking at my first 5 cards. I know this format reasonably well. One of them is this: each opponent discards a card. I basically have to either take it myself or foist it on one of my 3 friends. Like, I can't let the Coop have that.
To be fair, if you're drafting 36 cards, you could just draft it and then not put it in your deck.
That's true. You have room to eat a couple true stingers. Yeah, that's a good thing to keep in mind.
I think an interesting format this compares to is Nemesis Draft, where you draft a deck and then your opponent plays the deck you drafted.
I've heard that called backdraft as well.
A backdraft. Yeah. Just in general, any game that forces you to make choices and the opponent has to deal with those choices, so everyone's doing weird.
Yeah.
Power maxing. I can imagine a format like that would be interesting. I know I played a game that was a more traditional board game that its draft process was you drew like 4 cards, you kept one for yourself, and you gave one to everybody else, and then you put one in the pool in the center. As the game went on, everyone got their pool of cards, and there was a whole board game attached to that. And then the center deck was mechanically relevant for a bidding phase at the end. And that feels kind of like this Coop, where you could, instead of having everyone draft their normal signals, if you could just hand cards out to other people, and then you're catching signals of, what are they giving me, so what should I give them? In a face-down system would also work.
Yeah.
That is true. The early picks you get, you might not be able to play until you figure out what colors are open.
Yeah.
So you're also somewhat pressured on whether or not you can burn as many cards as you would like.
Yeah, like if you're burning a really powerful red card, your teammate might be like, no, I wanted that card.
I think the unpunishing version of this game is where you have some picks that you can cut and you build a normal Magic draft. But the more punishing might be a Desert Cube like this, where you are forced to play everything you get. that's pretty common in the cube world right now is no deck building drafts.
Yeah.
And this kind of feels like that kind of environment to me, but maybe I'm just wanting to rise to the challenge.
I'm actually, I would say 2 thumbs up on this submission. This is like really impressive to me. You could do this with a wide variety of card pools. It's not too hard to administrate. The splash value is super high. The chance for things to go completely wrong is kind of fun.
I do worry that even if players are trying to manage the luck of rares and non-rares ratio, they could just end up getting slammed with like
Yeah.
a giant stack of commons in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that that's part of the
Or like
fun.
rare
Like,
back to rare back to rare might feel a little more luck based. So I think
yeah.
I might try to look for a different system for how do you manage how much the coup flips up for top. But
Yeah.
overall, the Nemesis drafting seems really cool.
You do get to influence the amount of times that the coop gets large drops by feeding it more rares,
Yeah.
but then you have to deal with each individual card being a little stronger.
Yeah. Or the shuffler just giving you 6 in a row or whatever. Yeah.
A small pool,
Yeah.
I think that feels good, but if it's a larger pool, like if this you're doing a full size draft, I do worry that feeling of control is actually an illusion. That is just random ratios are going to take over more than your control of the draft is going to take over.
Fair enough.
So if you were going to build one of these, it looks like it's 5 9-card packs, and you need that for 4 players. That's is that 180 cards, or is that
Yeah.
okay? It's about maybe half the size of the small cube.
Yeah. So pretty achievable too, which I like.
And you use most of the cards each time, so there's also that.
Yeah. Before we finish up this one, just want to read out the custom card that Cord submitted. Glistening Hen, creature for 2 mana, a creature bird rare, flying. When you draft this card, reveal it, then exchange it with a random card in the coop. It's a 1/1. When you draft this card, reveal it. Is that a high pick or a low pick? Probably a low pick.
It's a rare, so you do want the coop to have it.
Oh, okay. This is just a feel good card. All right.
But do you draft it high or do you draft it low?
I think you just take it last pick and you're like, we got our rare ratio up, guys.
If you
Or I
get
guess that
it,
you look at 2 cards in the pack, you look at 3 cards in the pack. If all 3 of those cards are bad, just take the hen, take the bullet for the team. Hope your team can use the other card.
Oh yeah, if you know what colors your allies are, you would
Yeah.
like to take this and feed them the good cards. So
If
yeah,
the
that makes sense.
it depends if the coup is revealed or not. Because if the coup is face down, then
Sure,
it's a random card. But if it's a face up, you could be like, "Ooh, look at all those cards. I'd like to get a random one of those."
Yeah. Alrighty. Next up, we've got from BT Basemat, Power Tower. Players cooperatively battle an automated enemy. The twist, everyone's pulling from the same library. Graveyards remain separate. Prepare a deck with at least 50 times n+1 cards, where n is the number of human players. So for 2, that's 150 cards. Singleton Highlander construction encouraged but not required. All players are teammates, though this is not a 2HG variant. Remember that any powerful spells in the deck are likely to end up on your opponent's hand. The automaton starts with 50% extra life compared to the humans, does not pay mana cost for spells and abilities, and instead of playing land cards, cloaks all lands onto the battlefield. That's an interesting solve. 2/2 with word 2. The automaton aggressively plays its spells, artifacts, creatures as soon as it's able, and likewise activates abilities of non-creature permanents as often as it's able. Creatures prefer to attack, but if they had non-tap abilities, these are played aggressively. Tap abilities are played in or after combat. For instance, if a creature has vigilance and a tap ability, it may go to combat and then be tapped for its ability. Players win by knocking out the automaton. The players lose if all of them go out and the automaton is still alive. So the idea here is we got a shared library. For 2 players, 150 cards. For 4 players, 250 cards. But we're all playing off the same deck.
So this is Wizard's Tower.
Yeah.
As a format, just you're playing against an AI who's just able to draw random stuff.
Mm-hmm. They're on the players are on the same team, so they can block for each other and stuff.
I guess the note where they're saying, remember that any powerful spells in the deck are likely to end up in your opponent's hands, is telling us as designers that we need to watch out and not you as players to watch out, which is something Um, I'm not used to
Yeah.
being phrased it this way. Usually as rules, you're reading it as a player, but this is a rule for us as designers.
Yeah, it's a pitch.
I kind of want to do it where I just shuffled like 3 commander decks with different colored sleeves together. Because then that really is like you choose what bracket deck you're playing against. It is kind of funny. I do worry that it just like Wizard's Tower, you have a lot of chaos of the land drops are weird, so they added their own. In Wizard's Tower, you have a market you can draw from,
Hmm.
so that you can draft into the lands that line up with the spells you've drawn.
Hmm.
'Cause
Yeah,
I
you
can
got
imagine
5
getting
colors of
color screwed
stuff,
here
yeah.
pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that.
Is this specifically a 5-color deck?
I guess we don't know, yeah.
Yeah, you could sculpt it to not have that problem, but
This could be 2-color deck, 3-color deck, something like that, yeah. So there's some questions around there. How do you make sure people have enough lands? Do you go full Wizard's Tower and have a market? Blah, blah, blah. But then the other piece is, how do we come up with generalized rules about how a computer should play that are predictable, easy to administrate, don't take too long, etc.? How hard is that? Is that really hard? Is that kind of hard? I would say it's almost impossible for all Magic cards, but if you're curating it somewhat, how hard is that?
my 30-page document says it's like not really doable. I'll let you know if I
There
figure
you
that
go.
out one here in the next 17 years when I finish that out.
Fair enough.
Uh, I guess the issue I run into is like when the AI gets a Doomblade, what does it do with its Doomblade? And
That does seem pretty basic
not to
question.
stray back
Yeah.
too much, but that was also unanswered for me with Chord's draft, where
Hmm.
they maybe hit 2 or 3 different Doomblades until they hit a rare.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
I guess.
choices have to be made. Certainly, if you have a player administrating a separate player from the players in the group
Yeah.
administrating it, choices can be made that way. But
Yeah.
I imagine for some situations you would prefer not to have an extra player.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, like, Chord submission said the players get to make the choices. So if you rip 3 Doom Blades, you pick where the
Ah, I
Doom
missed
Blades
that.
go. Here, it doesn't say that, but maybe we just have to assume that's true of like, hey, if it can play a thing, it will play a thing. And if it has to make a choice, the players can make that choice.
I would say
The
VT base mats does feel like they're trying to give more agency to the AI to still act like a reasonable person.
Yeah. There are some callouts here that are pretty specific, like the vigilance and tap thing.
So I would expect if it
Um,
drew a Doomblade, it wouldn't Doomblade its own creature. And I
oh, that's
wonder if
true.
Cord had the same feeling of should it use removal on itself? Or does it have to still have a bit of a brain to
The general heuristic of, I will play this as long as it is at all advantageous to do so. Like, if that's the rule of thumb, then I can say, well, I won't Doomblade my own creature, but I will Doomblade a 1/1.
and
Um,
if you make your own custom cards, you could sculpt it to always make sure it says destroy target
yeah,
creature you don't control, so it's sculpted properly. But if you're using
yeah,
WotC cards, you're likely to trip into that. So my idea of just shuffling decks together, even though that would prototype really fast, would
yeah,
take more AI logic.
yeah. I think that it's a little hard to say confidently that we could get this to work for like all the cards in a core set. Like, I don't know that you would even, the rules would even continue to function at that level. Maybe they would. I don't know. But we're asking the AI to do a little bit here. There are sample cards here. Dwarven Lightsmith, which is a 6-mana 3/4, but with assist, so other people can help you pay for it. Then when it enters, creature your team control get +1/+1 till end of turn. So kind of a classic teamwork card from Battle Bond. And then Imperial Mask, when this enters, if it's not a token, each of your teammates creates a token that's a copy of this enchantment. You have hexproof. Wow. We're stacking out the AI now. Or I guess the AI is just as likely to get it. That's part of what we learned is that this is not a. I don't have a lot of agency over what the AI gets to draw. So if the AI draws Imperial Mask, well, sorry, it's got hexproof.
And the last one was custom cards smashing pumpkins, 2 and a white sorcery, destroy all cloaked creatures. Which does lead into VT base mats. Maybe the AI is supposed to have a trip on itself, because assumingly it's the only one with any cloaked
Yeah,
creatures.
yeah.
I'm not familiar with Judge's Tower, which you mentioned this resembled.
The Wizard's Tower.
Wizard's Tower. Is there infinite mana for activating activated abilities? I know there was some game mode that did, but I'm not sure if it was that.
No, Judge's Tower has infinite mana, and that's more of a puzzle game. Wizard's Tower is you take these were the fat pack boxes. I don't know what bundles are called now, but you just took the contents that came with the basic land bundle and a bunch of packs. You shuffled it together and you get a tower. You deal out cards to everybody, and then every turn you drew a card from the blind tower, and then you had like a rotating market of like 5 cards that each turn you drew one from the tower and one from that pool, so that players could still draft their lands because the lands come up the pool sometimes. But you were a lot of times trapped with the cards you drew in the blind that just you didn't see the lands for like 5 or 6 turns to be able to cast them, and it was as chaotic as whatever fat pack you bought. So if you got Ravnica, you're gonna have a lot more gold cards than if you bought it for M14. And it was a free for all game. You just attacked each other at 20 to 30 life or so.
Yeah. It feels, in the Wizard's Tower vein, it feels kind of random. Like I don't really get to pick what kind of game I want to play today. Yeah, so it's a little bit more. I would like to see something just crazy. I want to see absolutely weird things happening, laughing, all kinds of just mayhem.
The setup and teardown's really fast for this.
Yeah, you don't have
That's
to
true.
do a draft phase. You're just shuffling a deck.
Alrighty.
James Dalton Bell's pitch. Judge's Tower is a game where the point is technical precision and rules knowledge, typically played adversarially, where players are expected to manage an increasingly complicated board state and be the last person standing without making any rules mistakes. This format can be converted from an adversarial one to a cooperative one very easily, reframing it as the players versus the rules, and the shared deck, the tower. Because a last player standing victory condition does not make sense in this context, the victory condition should be one where the players defeat the deck itself in a game where the point is complicated rules interactions and technical precision. A winning game state would be one where players take consecutive turns without any game actions. So each player takes a consecutive turn without taking any game actions. We also define a loss condition so as to not have a game that lasts forever. Players will still be getting out of committing rules infractions, so if there ever is one player remaining in the game, that round is a loss, and the tower has won.
Funny.
See the attached document for examples of custom and canon cards that would be good in this environment, as well as kinds of cards that should be avoided, and a detailed description of default Judge's Tower.
So the cards are sometimes kind of complicated, like, hey, at the beginning of the next end step, do this, blah, blah, blah. Or like adding traits to cards that are easy to miss. And Judge's Tower is kind of fun because it takes usually not that long to eliminate someone. And one of the advantages of Judge's Tower over this maybe is that Judge's Tower is adversarial. So the other player, when they're waiting for their turn, is scrutinizing every single thing that their opponent's doing to try to find the hole. Whereas here, this is like full dojo cooperation. We are working together, but we are also noticing weakness in each other. And we keep each other honest and we try to make each other better.
I feel like this would be closer to the mind, where if you're allowed to fully communicate, I'm not sure this is really a game. This is just because Judge's Tower, you're saying you have that gotcha moments.
Yeah.
But this one, if people are allowed to talk, then they're constantly giving each other advice. And if something gets missed, probably everybody missed it because they were fully talking. But if we use the context of the mind where no one's allowed to talk and everyone just has to play their spells silently, and then somebody says, oh no, we lose because we messed up.
I think you still have some stuff where like, oh, I should have gotten a token when that happened last turn. I think there's still, maybe you don't, in Judge's Tower, you might notice it immediately and the thing might end right away. Whereas here, like you might notice it a turn and a half later when, oh, we forgot to draw that extra card. Ah, how did we forget that? I don't know.
Yeah, but the incentives are weird because you're not incented to think about the past because it could only hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah, the cheat level of like, oh, we should have lost there is kind of high. That's true.
One huge pro, as I was saying earlier, it'd be easy to prototype this. You can just take a Judge's Tower game and play it really fast and try it out.
Yeah. You could play a regular game of Magic and then notice when one of us makes a rules thing. See if we can play an entire normal game of Magic without any takebacks, any before that happens, any blah blahs. CryptRat, you want to play this? Are you a rules fan?
I could see doing this. I don't know if I would have 3 other people to do this with.
All right, fair enough.
Well, CryptRat, all you need is yourself. You just play against 4 decks. And just
You just administer 4 decks at the same time.
I'm not beyond that, but I think I would get a headache after a bit. Just keeping track of everything.
Yeah. One of the cards that he sent in was Momentary Forgetfulness, which is blue and a black for a sorcery. Draw a card until the end of your next turn. If a player would draw a card, that player skips that draw. Then exile Momentary Forgetfulness. So you do get to draw that first card. It doesn't stop itself. I don't think this is a full gotcha card, but...
this actually, other than it causes you rules infractions, drawing cards in Judgment's Tower is one of the worst things a player can happen to them. Because it's more options and more chances to trip into the rules. So this is like oddly good for you to play. And the problem is with all Judge's Tower things, it's not an agency environment. So you're going to play this on your first turn when you have it as a sorcery. And the nice thing is it does exile itself, so it doesn't mess with Graveyard Order, which is a very common way people can mess up Judge's Tower.
Does this card win on the first turn if you're able to survive the card that you're drawing from it?
Because it allows your opponent to do nothing on their turn?
I guess that's what I'm asking.
Well, as long as everyone has an empty hand, that would be pretty close. If you place on the first turn, everyone's going to have cards in hand to start with, typically. And everyone needs to empty their hand. So if you were to draw this as like somebody, the last person draws this, that's pretty good.
Oh, and that's even the note in the full rules. Is a card to help players work toward the goal of ending the game. So our goal here is to allow people to not do anything for a turn by like getting our hands as empty as possible, and then stopping our draws on purpose.
I mean, I think you could make a more lenient Judge's Tower where instead of 1 infraction and you're dead, you could have it that every infraction causes you more like life loss.
Yeah.
And so that could kind of work towards surviving to a certain threshold. Just like I think his set of get to 4 people, no one failed, could be extended for hardcore players of just seeing like, can we get 17 turns in a row without a failure? Kind of like high score seekers is really good for those kind of players.
Yeah. Then the other one, Genie of the Tower, 2 blue, black, red for a big flyer. Creature spells you cast cost an additional discard a card, then draw a card to cast. Other creatures have. When this creature deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. If you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Is the normal Judge's Tower rule of if you may, you must in here? Because then this reads, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, sacrifice it. Like you have to sacrifice it, then return a different thing from your graveyard to your hand.
This also applies to everybody's creatures,
Yeah.
not just your own.
Yeah.
And everybody's creature spells. No, but not everybody's creature spells. Just yours?
Just your creature spells, but all of their creatures.
And also selecting, so you could discard cards that cause more problems and hopefully draw on ones that don't.
Okay.
So like looting is good in that sense.
Yeah.
And it's one of the few agency points you get in Judge's Tower.
Alrighty. Yeah. Our next one here is from Yabo. Dual duels. Instead of 2 teammates, do 1v1 matches with your opponents. You both take your turn at the same time. You have separate health totals of 20 each. You can only attack the player in front of you, but you can cast spells and target stuff on your teammate or opposite opponent. You get 1 free mulligan when a player dies. Both of the people in that 1v1 game are out, and the team gets a point. Oh, okay. So the first player to be eliminated decides it. And then you have to do that 3 times.
Yeah. Aki Dual Striker is a custom card. Aki Dual Striker, 1 red, 3/2 creature goblin warrior, first strike. Handoff, 1 and a red. Put this card into a teammate's hand. They may cast it by spending mana of any color to cast it. Activate only during your turn. These cards persist even if you lose the game.
What does that last part mean?
So when you leave a game of Magic in multiplayer, the cards you own leave with you. So I think that's trying to imply that even if you die, your ally gets to keep this card in hopes that they can draw out the match.
Oh, I misread the original rule. So
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Ah. So it's what it actually is. There's two 1v1s going on, and then each of those games can end independently. You don't actually stop both games at the same time, which is what I thought originally. So yeah, I had misunderstood it at first. It's a good thing we had this reminder text.
Yeah. This does remind me of playing team formats where you play simultaneously next to each other. And Yabo's idea of what if you could influence each other is interesting. I remember playing one recently. I did not know it was going to be next to each other. I thought it was just our records were combined and we were going to play across the rooms for different formats.
Yeah.
And I really regretted my choice of playing a very complicated deck in the middle because the two people on my right and left, I would have much rather switch our seating around so that like our aggressive player can finish their rounds and then help us. But I was playing a deck that required a lot of mental energy and a long clock time. I couldn't help my people, but I was in the middle, so that was unfortunate.
Yeah.
But this one, the idea that you are mechanically trying to help each other, so it does wonder if do we have to like go in phases with each other, or could like game 1 be on turn 7 and game 2 next to them could be on like turn 4?
You take your turn at the same time, it says. I don't know if you have to be in the same phase, though.
I'd assume you'd have to be the same phase then. Okay.
So it's like two-headed giant, but with like a fence in the middle.
Yeah, you can't attack cross. What can't you do compared to two-headed? You have separate life totals, and you can't attack cross that fence. Is there anything else that's different from two-headed?
The lose condition's different than two-headed giant.
Yeah, you have separate life totals, almost separate sort of like outcomes, yeah. Do you think this is more or less complex than regular two-headed giant? Like if two-headed giant had never existed and this is what we played instead, would this have been easier to play, harder to play? What do you think?
I mean, it keeps the scale at 2, which is nice. Like the 20 life works still instead of having to upping the larger scale of two-headed giant. I'd say the closest person I've played is Emperor. I don't know if either of you guys have played Emperor Magic before.
Of course, yeah. I think this is like maybe as complex as Emperor in some ways.
Where are the players getting their decks? Are they like bringing their own decks?
Seems agnostic. You could be playing draft. You could be playing constructed.
Okay. Because I guess the edge case here would be one player's playing complete Pillow Fort counter magic removal, and they're just trying to make their ally win their game.
Yeah.
Which is definitely different from, I guess, typical Magic.
Different than two-headed giant is if you were to say that same idea of I play Rads and the guy next to me plays Mill, so they're not creature invested. That's one way to like min-max two-headed giant games. Is you can't do that in this version because if you play Rads, it only affects your boards. You can only use spells to target theirs unless you could cast your Wrath into their field somehow with the keyword or something.
Yeah, you can play control, but your cards that are applicable are narrower.
And you do need to win basically both sides.
Yeah, I guess how does that work? That's the other question. Like when one player dies, both the people in that 1v1 are out of the game, and that team gets 1 point. The other two players continue on. So their game has to finish eventually. And then you start a second game, and then whoever gets eliminated first in that second game loses, basically.
Which does encourage like aggro strategies, I think.
Oh.
But then again, most tournament structures seem to favor aggro strategies.
I mean, two-headed giant, you have to play one game around, and even those are long. So, yeah, like playing 1.5 two-headed giant games per round is like even more. Yeah, it's interesting. What are the advantages of this compared to two-headed? the board, like the combat attacking and blocking is more doable probably. But a lot
creatures are getting through combat more.
Yeah, that's a better way to say that. But like the removal levels and stuff like that are probably still two-headedy, and that like the best creature of both games is getting killed every game. Like the first good creature that any team plays, one of them will have a removal spell for it.
Well, because both teams have 20 life, Mill is no longer as good as it is in Two-Headed Giant.
Yeah, or each opponent cards don't pop
and
off.
then
like
each opponent cards don't pop off.
I guess the other...
It feels like there is an opportunity for this to turn into a 2v1 if you could just like play a wall and not worry about what's across from you and just spend your removal getting your ally through combat.
Yeah, you might also have the ability to sort of, I'm losing my game. I'm going to just tank so hard, but just dedicate all my resources to the teammate. So we have a draw in we each get a point in the first round, and then we move to the next round.
You could also worry about combo, because if your combo is like Triskelion and Mikaeus or something, you going infinite lets you do infinite for both sides.
Yeah, you could take out both.
So that would encourage combo. So probably control combo is probably the best pairing.
Crackle with power, the deal X to or 5 times X to X targets, you get to just wipe out both players at the same time.
Yeah.
That's fun.
It is noteworthy. You can get 2 rounds worth of wins in the first round.
Yeah, if your team wins both halves of the first thing, then they only have to win one from the second. But if it splits, it can split again, and then
you do have infinite split problems.
I guess you could draw forever. But if both teams win a game in the first round, they're 1-1. They both win a game in the second round, they're 1-1, and then whichever side wins one of their games will hit 3 points in the game, and the whole thing's over. Yeah.
I mean, so far I would play most of these so far, and that's not an exception on that one.
Yeah. It's like enough of an incremental change to two-headed without feeling like I'm experiencing upside compared to two-headed, that if this is what two-headed meant, that would be fine, but it's not tempting me away, I guess. It is cool though. And it is cool to think being able to throw a game, if you've been in team drafting, you say, well, if only I could just throw my game to help my teammate next to me. That's what you get to do here. You get to give up your game tactically to lock in a win. All right, when we get to these last couple, and they're all from you.
This is my submission, and some of the specifics I didn't pick in a specific thing, just leaving it a little open-ended. But I did have an idea of where to take it. So using a number of pre-constructed decks, each player picks a deck. Each player's starting hand size is low. Each player shares the starting life total, and creatures are always goaded.
Oh, okay.
So they have to attack each turn.
Okay.
Each player must cast a spell during their turn, and the cards in the decks are chosen to make what to play when relatively painful.
Huh.
And then either the spells can be played without paying mana so that there would be no lands in the deck, or players are provided a finite number of starting lands on the battlefield. And then players have to stay alive under these conditions until one player is able to draw one of their win the game cards from their deck and satisfy its conditions.
So they share a life total, so if 20 damage is dealt, the game ends?
Players lose, yes.
Oh, okay. So you kind of don't want combat damage to happen, but you have to if possible.
Yes, so likely you'll be playing a creature, and then someone else will play a creature so that they are able to provide a blocker.
And we'd like to do that. Okay. Huh. In terms of win conditions, what were you thinking? Are these deal 20 to someone? I guess it can't be that.
Well, the prototype decks I made were using the existing available win condition cards, so The red deck was using Laboratory Maniac, but then all of
Oh.
the rest of the decks had a card in their color. So there was, I think, Hedron Alignment in the blue deck, Helix Pinnacle in the green deck, but you'd have to draw into them, find them, and then satisfy their conditions.
Okay. So the seed here is we are all trying to not end this game at first. And then if I feel like my opponent's going to win the game, now I want to end the game with creatures so that I can at least force a draw instead of conceding a loss.
Oh, no. Each player will win or lose together. So if the blue player is able to get their Hedron Alignment going, the whole table wins.
Okay. Wow. So this is like we're all being mind controlled and we have to not kill each other until we can get out of it. Like all our creatures are going wild. And so like all the creatures that are on board, oh man, you play that, then I'll play this, and then we'll trade. Oh, if only we could one of us could draw a removal spell, then we could stop that giant flyer.
This is where Fog Bank might be the best Magic card.
Yeah. Maybe what you're solving here is like rather than an AI deck, you have sort of things that you fundamentally control, but that are bad for you.
That is a good way of putting it. In your 3-card hand, there you might have a Smallpox. Do you want to play a Smallpox and make everybody discard cards and lose lands? Or do you want to try to do something else?
I will say this is such an interesting twist on Magic because you're trying to like play poorly in a sense. Kind of like how anti-Wordle, you're trying to lose at Wordle.
Yeah. I'm trying to train my 7/1 for a 1/1. Yeah.
But which maybe some people can learn from that of like, how can I sequence better? Because this was great. We all died, but that's actually how I normally sequence. And clearly I'm making mistakes in normal Magic. Like you could attack and then like purposely your spell for the turn could be a giant growth on their creature so that it kills your creature.
Yeah. I think that's the most solid nugget of this is like we have to make plays, but we're trying to make bad plays. And then the win conditioning part, I think you just need to see the deck composition to really get a feel for that. But yeah, there's some cool stuff to this.
I mean, I like the red one being like Labman trying to empty your deck. So you're playing a lot of the looting cards just to dig through your deck as fast as possible. And maybe the blue player at the table is like targeting you with the mill spells so that you can get your deck done. And that's like the path you guys see to victory is the Labman path. But the next time you play, you look around and you're like, oh, how do we win this? Well, if we could just never hit the white player can get as much life as they can, and then Felwar Sovereign will win us the game. So it's an extra wrinkle of how do we win this game is depending on what win cons everybody gets.
Or which player draws a win con first, and if you can satisfy that particular one.
So it would depend on those win cons, and it's too bad we aren't custom designers, so we couldn't make custom cool win cons in whatever color we wanted.
Scrolling through the prototype deck lists, the white deck was using near-death experience, which you have to have exactly 1 life during your upkeep.
Love that card. I do think it should be a black card, not a white card, but Watsy disagreed.
Fair enough. This is not a general format. This is like a novelty thing you spring on your friends and like, what just happened to us? You lose and they're like, all right, we got to try again. We got to see if we can win this. Yeah, this is cool. I like this.
Cool, CryptRat.
All righty. Otter.
My testing I did the last couple weeks was using this first idea here, where it's using a lot of the assumptions of the TMNT system. But instead of it just drawing random cards, you would draw a number of cards equal to the opponent, and you would arrange them in a line. So if it was 3 players, you would draw 3 cards. And you would choose 1 to cast the turn that they draws them, and 1 to cast the following turn. And my goals for that was trying to get people to... They're going to have to fight everything the AI plays, but they kind of get to delay the things that they're most scared of. So if you see that it's a card that's something like a Blood Artist, maybe you want to have it play the Blood Artist early so that you could kill the Blood Artist. Or you want to put Blood Artist late so you have enough time to draw removal for that Blood Artist. I put some other tech on top of those, but that was the core selection system that I was trying to explore, was giving players the agency over controlling the NPCs sequencing at its core level.
Yeah, so this is the TMNT deck, but we get to see a little bit in the future, but also get surprised by some stuff. The NPC is going to end up playing one card in the first turn, and then in future turns, it's going to play two cards, a card that you saw coming and a brand new mystery card.
Depending on player count, you would scale it slightly differently, but yeah, that's kind of the core.
Okay.
At 2 players, you're describing what it would be. At 3 players, you kind of have this like extra chain, and if you ever played 4, it would have even more chaining.
1, then 2, then 3, and then
which did match the ramping of turn 1 it plays 1 card, turn 2 it plays 2, then turn 3 it plays 3. And I had the cards all scaled to say like each opponent. So when it drew a card and said, do something for each opponent, it plays 3 of those a turn in the mid to late game. So it scaled pretty strong for the first 6 turns, and then it would fall off.
That feels pretty good and is like a decent variant on the TMNT stuff. And you could apply that to the TMNT decks or like something just like it. So this is like just like a module that's a part of a greater format. And being able to see a little bit coming is fun, and I think is not too hard on the complexity.
I was hoping it was going to be low in complexity, and I think it was harder than I wanted it to be.
Oh, okay. I guess I sort of see it without playing it as like basically the complexity replacement of the boss cards. Like instead of the boss cards adding some stuff, instead you're adding in this like forecasting thing that you have to pay attention to. Yeah, I think this is a good mod. I think this gives you different flexibility. If we want to give arm players with counter spells or arm players with other things like that, this is a way to make those more live.
I guess the other selection system, which is the other submission I put in, I was trying to make it closer to Magic, like facsimile in a sense.
Okay.
Where the NPC has a deck of lands and non-lands. I'm sorry, it has 2 decks. It has a deck of lands and has a deck of non-lands. Each turn, it plays one of its lands from its land deck, and you could have those as basics, or you can add text to them. But each turn, it would draw cards based on your opponents, and it would reveal them to the opponents, and the opponents get to make a choice as the players. Do they want to basically put that card into that NPC's hand, or do they want it to be able to cast that card? But you only get that choice for cards that are less than the mana it already has. So if it has 4 lands in play, if it draws a 3-drop, it's going to cast that 3-drop no matter what you say. But in the early game, if you see that it draws 5 and 6 and 7 drops, you can choose to put them in its hand, or you can choose to have it exile them. For each card you exile, it gets a bonus land drop. So in the early game, you can deal with some of the threats that you can see that will be coming down the line in exchange for ramping the NPC. Because each turn it's going to play everything that has got mana value less than or equal to all of its lands for free.
All right. This is very spiky. Hey, I've been playing with players that are very spiky for a long time, so that's cool. But we're making like a lot of really fine-grained judgment calls on which cards to give the NPC, right?
Yeah, my main concern was I'm trying to give it to where...
Yeah, what are you trying to solve?
I don't get to control the allies' decks, or if I make a deck cube, I could, but I want to give you the feeling that you're playing against something of your own making. And also give you moments as the players to feel clever, like, oh, because we delayed its wrath effect, we were able to sandbag and negate and hit it, or because we hit a wrath early, we force its wrath to go off early, we get to be clever and rebuild faster than it.
Yeah.
But the second one was really trying to mimic the lands, partially because I played with my first version, and somebody played a Felwar Stone, and it was easy to say, your Felwar Stone taps for any color, I don't really care. But it did make it obvious that some of the things that create these... that Magic wants to imply that there are things across the table, and I was trying to get closer to that in a way that still felt meaningful.
Yeah. We're trying to solve some of the NPC like AI decision making, but in a new way.
Yeah.
It also seems to draw a lot of cards, which is maybe going to make something very explosive very fast, which is maybe what you need to keep up with the table of Commander players.
I've thought a lot about how to scale it right.
Feels interesting that the TMNT deck and the Theros ones with the Hydra, those didn't use traditional Magic cards to, I guess, set up the AI. But for the majority of these submissions, at least for the ones that specify what the conflict is, they're using existing magic. Well, not necessarily existing magic cards, but like cards with mana costs and permanent types.
Yeah, yeah.
When I was making my own custom ones, I was trying to tag permanent types to like align with things. Like I even thought about putting sagas so that they could have staggered effects so players could more sequence them. But adding that with the queue was overlapping with that overlap of like doing the sequence. Same with planeswalkers, even though planeswalkers are cool because you can attack them and that's a access point for players. I found the artifacts and enchantments are really good so that players can't just block or attack into the best creatures, but people's commander disenchants are actually relevant. I do worry though when you make a new card type, it's a sponge and it just has rules text like the event cards. The event cards aren't sorcery, so you can't cast envelop to counter an event. And some of that is good and some of that's bad.
Yeah, that's
not letting
true.
people hard counter them, but also it's a little sad when you're holding on to a negate and you can't use negate on anything.
Yeah, negate is everywhere.
Alrighty, yeah. Figuring out I guess figuring out how much of regular Magic should be involved in creating whatever you're competing against. You're playing co-op. Who are you playing co-op against? How much AI is required? How dumb do you want to be? How much like regular Magic cards do you want to be? Do you want to be made with only regular Magic cards and no special cards? I feel like I have a lot more tools or ingredients to mix together when I'm thinking about co-op now. Do you guys have a favorite from the submissions or a favorite piece of technology or something like that to wrap things up?
The one I would want to play, assuming these all were products that were fully built tomorrow, I think is CryptRats, because I feel like that is a fun puzzle to solve in a puzzle sense.
Damn.
Um,
You're hardcore.
it feels fun to like, how do I solve this? But also, I know I wouldn't be very happy at the end because I would be nitpicky about little things. But it's the one I want.
Yeah.
The one I'm probably gonna do next week or something is probably just try this like Power Tower by VT Basemat and just take
Oh,
two
okay.
commander decks and shuffle it together and struggle bus through it. I know it's not going to go well, but I think it's just the fastest to prototype, and just two or three different color sleeves would be fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And just getting the chaos of whatever that is. I mean, maybe even just take one commander deck and everyone draws from one commander deck would be okay too. But
yeah, what's your pick, CR?
I don't know about the logistics of putting it together, but I would like to try chords. I like the idea of drafting and sort of picking what you want the adversary to have.
Yeah.
I would play it if someone else built it. I don't know that I would have the time to select the cards myself.
Yes, that's like I think one of the overriding feelings I get from all these. Like, please bring these into existence. I am not a strong enough soldier for this battle. Like, yeah, I think my pick is similar in that like Juliet's like Final Fantasy raid thing. Hell yeah, I want to do that. Oh my god, would that take so long? This would take like, if you were designing most of these cards, this would take you like 2 to 3 times as long as making a regular set to design this. The amount of innovation and design you have to do. Oh man. Being a dungeon master, how do those cards work? How do you playtest all that? Yeah. I think between Cord and Juliet, those are my two want to play it kind of picks here. And maybe that's what we're learning about co-op in general is like the heuristics are even so far past what two-headed giant decks want you to do that like, oh man, picking the right card pool is really, really hard for this cooperative stuff, and maybe why we haven't seen cooperative take off. Because like people want to bring their own card pool, my own commander deck, my own standard deck, but we kind of can't do that for reasons that we talked about. Like it breaks most of these co-op modes. Yeah, so you need to get to basically hardcore cube design in order to make these off the ground. I feel like I learned a ton with this episode. Nice chunky one for people this week after a couple challenge review ones. So hopefully people enjoy our deep dive into cooperative magic. Thanks to both Otter and CryptRat for hopping on the pod this week. But before we get out of here, I just want to remind people of our design challenge. Design challenge, that's the best way to get involved in the pod. You're going to send us a card. The challenge this month is Haughty Juno, design a hate bear card for curtailing a particular strategy. So hate bear, kind of like stacks, we talked about that earlier, making things more expensive and making them enter tap, making things get sacrificed all the time, protecting things excessively. And then the bonus points, Arms of the Man I Sing, give the card a musical theme. I've been looking forward to that. I want to see some musical cards. And Who Forced by Fate, interacts with or can be cast from or enters from exile. So suspend, plot, foretell, all those, but also any kind of stuff related to that. That'll be due June 26th, so you got a little bit of time left for that. And that's our podcast for the week. Hop on the Discord where all the action is. Otter, you have anything you want to recommend to people? Anything you want to shout out?
Got a new call pitch. Can we get as many popcorn submissions in a row without any typos? Just how many can we get? New record.
Throwing down the
6
gauntlet?
in a row, yeah.
What was our record?
I think I've got about 6 where I haven't had to do some sort of period or uppercase lettering. I'm really thinking about those. But please feel welcome to join Popcorn and just submit cards. We're having fun. I think one of my favorite things to do is when Popcorn's really popping off and I'm typing up a card and someone else submits before I can.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I'm never going to call dibs because I need to be able to make the card and for someone else. So I'd rather get shot under than call dibs. So come over and do some popcorn.
Popcorn is like the opposite of this stuff. Popcorn is like, what is a cool idea? Let me write it down. And then move on before you have to build the other 299 cards around that card. How about you, CryptRat? Anything you want to shout out?
Can't think of anything, but thank you for inviting us on.
Yeah, I was super glad to get you on the pod. You've been such a big part of the Discord for so long, so thanks for hopping on.
Mm-hmm.
If you need to reach any of us, Discord, like I said, that's the place to do that. And most of all, everyone, thank you for listening to this monster episode.